Well, we say this every week, but this week has seriously been crazy in the political world. So we are lucky to have an expert here to help us break it all down. So today we're having journalist Tara Palmeri on the show, which is really exciting for us because in our News Girls origin segment, we talked about wanting to make a show that's credible and covers all the politics, but is also easy to digest. And it's exciting to see other veteran journalists in the field doing the same. Yeah, so Tara has a crazy impressive career. She's worked at basically, it seems like every major outlet, ABC, CNN, Politico, New York Post, Puck, and more. But she recently left traditional media to start her own channels on YouTube, which is called The Tara Palmeri Show, and Substack, which her column is called The Red Letter. And Tara is known for her inside sources in DC, so we are thrilled to get the scoop on the infighting on the big beautiful bill, Trump's crypto dinner, and DC's hottest new political club. She also unpacks the tensions between Trump and world leaders like Putin and Netanyahu. So starting with the budget, Trump's big beautiful bill has passed through the House, and we know that it's now in the Senate. There's a lot of Republican kind of infighting about this bill. Can you break down the most controversial parts of the bill? What are people fighting over?
Yeah, I think the main parts of the bill that people are fighting over is the fact that it is so expensive, and the CBO score, that's the Congressional Budget Office, they've shown that this is going to increase the deficit in a way that is the opposite of what these, spending hawks, these fiscal conservatives claim to really care about. Also, obviously, concerns about cuts to Medicare and Medicaid and what that would do to some of the members in states where a lot of their constituents rely on that. There's a constant fight going on between, obviously the members that come from really poor states. There are the members who come from the wealthier states who realize that they're not going to be elected again because they come from blue states and they live in, battleground swing districts. And then you have the members who are just like the House Freedom Caucus, the guys who are old school Republicans who care about the debt. Republicans used to kind of mock Democrats for being big spenders. But if there's anything we saw from President Trump, he loves to spend. He loves to put his name on a check. Elon Musk said he was going to go after entitlements with Doge. Trump was like, no, don't do that. My people who are the white working class who need them. It's going to be in the Senate also. They're less controlled by the political tides because, as we know, they're elected every 6 years. So they're not as influenced by running for re-election every 2 years. So you might have some hardliners like Ron Johnson and Rand Paul saying this is not acceptable. They've already sort of said those things so far, and they're real fiscal hawks. And I think it's going to go through the meat grinder again. We'll see if they pull it off. I think they will ultimately because Trump has a lot of power right now, and I think he'll bully everyone into it. But what will the longer term repercussions be, and how will that fare in the midterms?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's always interesting when the same party, members of the same party are fighting. We saw
Mm.
Mike Johnson this weekend on all the Sunday shows, giving off an aura of confidence that he's going to pull this off, but also he seemed to be trying to pressure senators not to make such big changes. Do you think this will be a long-term struggle, or do you think there will be any mentality of fall in line and let's just get it passed as quickly as possible?
I think he's going to have to keep saying those things to remind the Senate that he isn't able to, he doesn't have a lot of wiggle room. And it's kind of remarkable that he was even able to pass through the House through his own, self-imposed Memorial Day deadline. And at one point, the Senate wanted two bills to break it up. The House, they said, we're never going to be able to do this twice. So he's just trying to lay down the hammer of political realities from his chamber.
We want to ask you about this crypto investor dinner that Trump recently hosted. And this was kept pretty secret. Nothing official has been released, but details and accounts of people who attended have been coming out. So what do we know about the event and who was there?
Yeah, we know that it was a lot of foreigners and that they thought that they were there to have influence on the president because in their countries, for example, I think the New York Times quoted a man from South Korea who was very clearly there saying, I see this as a donation to President Trump, a direct donation. American politicians are not allowed to accept donations from any foreigners. Some of them were disappointed, though, that they didn't get as much time with the president, that he came in and, said hello to a few of them and then left. I thought that this was particularly rich because this is a product that the president and his family have made $390 million from. They said it's 40% of his net worth, more money than he's
Whoa,
probably made as a
that's
real estate
crazy.
tycoon, and then made that in 5 months. Although apparently everyone was really disappointed with the food. I read that food sucked. They
Food
said it was
sucks.
the worst food
That's a
ever
bummer.
at a Trump resort. So boo-hoo.
Well, we did see that there are calls now for Trump to release the guest list, but obviously, like crypto donations is like they're anonymous, so it's been problematic that we don't know like who exactly is buying like this
Hmm.
access to the president. Like, do you think that they will ultimately release this guest list?
It has to be like FOIA. Like you should be able to like put in a request, although it's unclear. I mean, will it go into the archives? I'm pretty sure that everything the president does has to go into the National Archives, but as we know, they're not really great at that. And I think that Marco Rubio is actually running the archives in addition to being the national security
That's a
advisor,
lot to take
being
on.
this, yeah, the Secretary of State. He's like the general administrator of something else. He's got a lot of jobs. So
Yeah.
I think this one probably will fall to the wayside.
Don Jr., so Trump's son, just opened an
Mm,
exclusive members only club, which I actually think has such a good name, Executive Branch. They're just really leaning right into it. Um,
right.
but
Pay
in
for
this
play.
Yeah.
but they're keeping it super under wraps, obviously adds to the exclusivity of it all. So
Mm.
have we learned anything? Like what do we know anything about this place?
Yeah, I mean, we know that Donald Trump Jr. is a partial owner with Steve Witkoff's son. Steve Witkoff is like Trump's bestie, official envoy to Ukraine and Middle
Everywhere.
East.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's basically the shadow Secretary of State. He also helped broker the Qatar plane, and he was bailed out by the country of Qatar. His Park Lane hotel in Manhattan, he needed money from Qatar, and they gave him $100 million for that. That was back in 2021.
Whoa.
So
Oh,
pretty recently, yeah, he's got some relationships there. Like I'm sure they're going to be taking money from only Americans, and it'll be the $500,000 fee, which is totally reasonable. Trump was certainly able to increase his fees to Mar-a-Lago to 1 million, but at least you know that you're going to see the president.
right.
President's son depends
Yeah.
on how close do you think he is with his father.
No media is allowed, but we have to ask, are you going to try to get like an
Of course,
exclusive and get
yeah,
in there?
yeah. Wear my wig.
We saw that Trump over the weekend seems to have kind of turned on Putin. Can you kind of catch us up on what he's been saying and why this shift is notable? We haven't really seen him take a hard stance on Putin until this point. So what's going on?
I think that Trump is realizing he's getting played, that the longer the negotiations drag out, the more he's losing. Trump is like, oh, we have a special relationship. This is fine. You're getting played. You're getting played. And until he realizes that, he's got to decide like, are you going to do the sanctions? Are you going to really like equip Ukraine the way that they can? Every day that Trump is getting played, though, as he says in his own words, people are dying. He said he could solve this war in a day, but it's been 5 months now, and he's getting tired of it. He's tired of what's going on in the Middle East. He's tired of everything around the world. He thought he could fix it with his own might. Turns out no one cares.
Trump has like obviously flip-flopped on his level of involvement in the war. Sometimes he's like brokering peace talks, and sometimes he's just like, I'm not going to do anything until there's like a ceasefire ASAP. So do you think these tensions with Trump and Putin will influence his like next steps on his involvement with Russia and Ukraine?
I think ultimately Trump will always never like Zelensky.
Okay.
And because Zelensky campaigned for Kamala Harris. Like he that was stupid, frankly. Like you don't get involved in American politics when you're in the middle of a
No.
war. And and also going back to the second impeachment. It's a difficult situation, like kind of like how he's been in limbo with Israel. I think he thought Netanyahu would go along with what he wanted him to do, and he hasn't really. And so, I mean, this ground incursion, Trump is not happy about this. And he's getting tired of the war. I mean, there was a reason he didn't stop in Israel on the way home. And then he has his own problems with the trade war, which he's obviously started. I mean, he only has a few more months left of like true, maybe a year max of having power before he's considered lame duck.
Well, we wanted to ask you about Trump v. Netanyahu because this one really surprised us because they were buddies. They've always been buddies, but obviously things have shifted. Can you break down for our audience a little bit about how we know that there's things are different now?
Yeah, I think Trump just doesn't like someone who makes him look like he's a bad deal maker. I think he doesn't like the images from Gaza, and I don't think he's just not happy with it.
But does this mean if there's tension between Trump and Netanyahu that Trump Gaza won't happen?
Oh, yeah, Trump Gaza, that's funny. Trump hasn't talked about this in so long. Trump just seems to have forgotten this quixotic idea that he
Yeah.
had.